Super! Super! Super!
You go jump. Hey, hey, hey. Give me jump. Hey, welcome, 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 welcome to let me go jump, 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 jump. One more time. Hey, hey, hey. Dum, 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 dum. Give me jump. Brooklyn! How do you everybody? Hello, 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 meeting people is so wonderful. It's true. I can hardly wait to meet someone like you. Maybe just to give myself a chance. Right now. Helping people, loving next to me. Hello, hello, hey. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, 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 hey. Hello, hello. Hello, 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 hello. Only to keep things under control. Oh yeah. Very often we should say hello. Hello. You can start with me, my friend, today. Right now. Look at someone in the eyes and say hello, 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 hey. Hello, 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 where whistle? Hey. Chop, 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 chop. Where yeah, where we go? Chop, chop. K-R-N-I-D. There is a spirit in this bed. Bang, bang, night, you go meet it. 4 o'clock to the morning, ready, set, and waiting. The spirit is here, there, and everywhere. Who jump, jab, jab, and flop. Mama, yo, stick fighters in top. Oh, yo, 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 Trinidad and Tobago. Party time, peace and love, and no crime. Never, never, oh, it comes and go. Hey, I'm feeling the wine and something. I want to, I feel the, I want to, I want to, I feel the, I want to. Chop, 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 chop. Oh yeah, oh yeah, chop, chop. Remy family radio fire, musical fire. Bang bang, jump around and enjoy it. Steel and brass with calypso, in the ring like a shango. My spirit and power don't interfere. Boom, small, medium and large. Ay, Miss Coronat. Rearrange, y'all are coming without small change. It's dollar wine, big money on my mind. To hell with the clock, I don't hear the clock. Hey. Oh,
Los Sanchez, Chinese Records.
big style.
Friend.
Listen to a prayer meeting of this people preaching with a leader in front of people shaking. So I tell my partner, why then we get closer? Because I tell myself I'm hearing soca. There is something to be spiritual. To me it was more like Bacana. Oh no, yeah, was it dancing? Some girls bring out the time. If you see that this woman fine, oh Lord singing, whoa, 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 like soca Baptist, like soca Baptist, like soca Baptist, whoa, 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 like soca Baptist, like soca Baptist, whoa, whoa.
Get some food. Check that out. Make sure you go down. Make sure you.
Just then I wanted me, caused me to a crazy. So they embrace my arms and start to spin me. But I created problem. I start to fight with them. So the spirit in me, they have no mercy. When they see I really give me trouble, the preacher laid hands on his Bible. Oh Lord, yeah, one chapter 2 page 1. Someone quickly says, which was over and Baptist mix. Oh Lord, singing, whoa, 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 like soca Baptist, like soca Baptist, like soca Baptist. Whoa, whoa, like soca Baptist, like soca Baptist. Whoa, whoa.
Hey, hey, hey. Take the wave. Give it check. Stop it.
Why jumping up in a van? I end up in confusion. Go. The man was a green color. I don't know it better. I ain't sure if this sort of thing really happened. Oh, because my head was so bad. But Rebecca was away all. He should button hold on. And she started to whine like she mad. For the day, falling down. And the girl jumping up. Stop. But she was dancing around in a circle. Hold on. Rebecca drink meeting. Rebecca smoke meeting. Rebecca still meeting. Rebecca high man. She was dancing around in a circle.
Get something in the wave.
High. Willow, lava bombeyo, Willie.
Willow, get something and wave. Boom bam,
Get something and wave.
Willow.
Get something and wave.
Everybody,
Get something and wave.
Say whoa yo, whoa yo yo,
wee. Oh yeah, take the wave. Put up your umbrella. I want to see umbrella moving left to right. Umbrellas left to right. Left. Shelter someone. Hey. Put up the umbrella. I want it. All them umbrella bouncing. DJ.
Willow, lava bombeyo,
Hey. Umbrella.
Get something and wave. Get something and wave. Get something and wave.
Charlie.
Get something and wave.
say whoa yo, whoa yo yo, whoa yo yo, whoa yo yo.
Get something and wave.
Boom bam,
Get something and
boom
wave.
bam, boom bam.
Get something and wave.
Vale.
This carnival, the bacchanal, tell them
No cookie. No cookie.
for them you well, ringing a bell.
No cookie. No cookie.
Mr. Police Commissioner, the action stand from Panorama. Too long inside, they want the way in a bar. I ain't killing you, break no law. What you time make me for? Trinidad and Tobago. Mile. Break away. Carnival is plenty action.
Get something unwell. Get something unwell. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101 Super Blue. Super Blue. The Road March King. I know you all young people know about Marshall, but the original is always Lord Kitchener, Mr. Road March. And then when Kitchener faded from the scene, Super Blue. My generation know him as Blue Boy. And then he became Super Blue. Austin Lyons, one of the greats of our God's gift to us, calypso music, soca. Soca is the soul of calypso. The soul of calypso. Invented by Ras Shorty in the mid-1970s. He kind of took the African sound in calypso and he blended it with the Indian sound and create the soul of calypso. Soca, that's what soca is, the soul of calypso. In the mid-1970s, Ras Shorty and real good music. People make a differentiation between calypso and soca. Well, it's basically the beat, fast beat and so on. And I guess soca is more party and jump up and cha-la-la-la-la, get something on wave. But Blue Boy, Super Blue always had a message, whether it was Ethel, Rebecca, hello, and of course Soca Baptist, which was quite controversial in its time. But Super Blue come from down south in Trinidad, and that's Baptist country, and that is why you get the Baptist sound in the music. Good evening to all of you where you're joining us from. Welcome to our Tuesday night edition of Politics 101. I see all of you are out and ready to roll. We have friends tonight. Sister Audreyanna Thomas is going to be here with us. Some of you will remember her in the first 2 years of the show, 3 years, and then she took a break and she's back, and we're going to be talking with her tonight and on a range of issues, issues. So welcome wherever you're joining us from. You're joining us from the Caribbean. I know some of you are still cleaning up from Hurricane Beryl, and those of you are joining us from England, from the United Kingdom, Great Britain, whatever you call iteration. England is England, Great Britain is Great Britain, and then you have the United Kingdom. And of course, they had their elections there recently. New prime minister, new party in after 14 years. The Labour Party is back. Quite a thing there. And then over in France, I know some of you join us from France. They have a hung parliament there. They had their parliamentary elections recently. No party got a majority. And there, they didn't run so much as parties. A good lesson for us in Guyana. What they had were 3 blocks. You had the left wing block, made up of the Socialist Party, the Communist Party, the Green Party. Left wing mean the people who are the progressive wing, working class kind of, rhetoric, policies. And then you have the centrists. Those are the people who are there in the middle. In my time, they used to talk about left of center and right of center. On top of that, no, we have. And then you have the right wing. The people who are into the anti-immigration, the kind of Trump type. and so on. And they were the third bloc. Well, the leftist bloc got the most seats, and then the centrist bloc got the second most seats, and then you had the right-wing bloc. They had the third most seats. Nobody got a majority. So there is going to be a hung parliament. But like Guyana, they have a mixed system. The president is elected separately. And so we have Macron, who is the leader of the center party, the centrist party. He's the president. And of course, he has to name a prime minister. And the prime minister will come from one of the three blocs. But his group of parties, the centrists, they brought second. So what you will have to have is some kind of coalition government, some kind of coalition government. Some people in Guyana have been talking about that, but that's quite interesting what's happening there. Over in the United States of America, where lots of you are joining us from, is Bacchanal there, as being the Caribbean would say. Biden is under the gun, so to speak. Some Democrats, I understand, are calling for him to step aside after his less than sterling performance in the debates. And there's a fear that Trump has the upper hand. And, half of the society fears Trump. I suppose most of us in the world would prefer anybody but Trump. But America is a place you can lose an election with a debate. I wish that were so. I wish that were so in our Guyana, that you could lose an election by a debate. Because them devils that we have in government now, they will be put to pasture. But of course, our political culture is different, I was saying last night, if them over there can make our finale presidential material, them on we side must shut up that nonsense that Aubrey Norton is not presidential material, because Aubrey Norton is 1,000,000 times more presidential than her finale. And if they can make her finale presidential material, over this time, shut your mouth. All our candidates are presidential material. All, bar none. And as I said, it's a whole quick way, man. I be married to, if girl like a she can married, then me can married too. I be married to, if I like a them can married, then I be married too. If them can be presidential material, then all our potential candidates and actual candidates are presidential material. Black people, opposition people, you don't beat Bush for PPP. Big up all your candidates. All your candidates. You might like one more than the other, or two more than, but all of them presidential. Good evening and welcome to you all. You all notice Jacques is threatening Exxon. Exxon said there is no conflict of interest between Exxon and Nigel Hughes. Jack Dio then said Exxon wrong, and Exxon will hear from Jack Dio. You see what I'm telling you all? The conflict of interest with Exxon is the government. But once we open we mouth on this side and start saying Nigel Hughes' conflict of interest, Jack Dio grapple it. And he now making Nigel Hughes. You see, that's what I said. In politics, you gotta be strategic. Even in your criticism, I am not saying, yeah, you hear me good. Come here, why you came in name and say, me wrong talk. Nigel used as potential conflict of interest because potentially he could become a member of a new government. And if he's the lawyer for Exxon and the new government that he's part, whether he's president, prime minister, or just a minister, if he is part of that government and he's lawyer for Exxon, that's conflict of interest. For now, is potential conflict of interest. Now, Jack Dio is saying the party that he leads is in parliament. And technically, if a party is in parliament, that party is part of the government because the opposition is part of government. So Jack Dio holding on ponder and saying, well, you party that is in parliament and you is the lawyer for the company that your party in parliament has to negotiate with. Now there's some technicalities there. Although the opposition is part of government, the real day-to-day government is the executive branch, not the legislative branch. But the other big story really is now Jack Dio know that the opposition, now Jack Dio know that the opposition is part of government. When he sidelining the opposition, making the opposition no part of government, all the time he doesn't treat the opposition as part of government, but now when he wants to score points over Nigel Hughes, he making the opposition part of government. You see what I tell you? Be careful when you're all talking. Sometimes we have to be careful in politics. All of it, so quick time. Those of you who don't like Nigel Hughes, oh God, he get conflict of interest. The conflict of interest is the government. The government has conflict of interest with Exxon. Is the government take its own EPA to court? It is the government ministers, I'm reliably informed, own all kind of business. And they got people fronting the business, doing business with Exxon. And you all open your all mouth. Some of you all open your all mouth. Because you all don't think Nigel Hughes should be the presidential candidate, or you're using PPP propaganda on him. My people, opposition, you know, nowadays I start plenty but levels. So we got two levels here. Black people, which is the base of the opposition, and then you get the opposition level. Opposition people, black people, zip your mouth when it comes to certain things. Zip your mouth. Do not beat Bush to the PPP. Do not beat Bush to the PPP. Nigel Hughes has no conflict of interest with Exxon. Potential. And he said, at the end the AFC is in parliament, I will have nothing to do with oil in the AFC. You can disagree with that. You can say that there is a maneuver. But by God, don't get into that stupidness of beating Bush to PPP. Hey, Jack, you lift up your petticoat and shout he red, and you know what? And I want to declare war upon Exxon. I want Jack Dio to declare war on Exxon. Exxon will hear from him. Well, I am going to be very glad if Exxon begin to hear from the PPP. Hint Beniba, make Kwashiba take notice. Mr. Jack Dio, I'm with you, my brother. I'm with you. I take back my petticoat story. I put on back your trousers. I am with you, Mr. Jack Dio. Let Exxon hear from you. Please declare war on Exxon. Quick, Mr. Jack Dio. Declare war on Exxon. I'm going to hold you to that barrett. I don't see you nowadays because you don't walk the road like me. So I don't see you. But when I see you, if you really declare war on Exxon, I'm going to shake your hand. I shake your hand. I'm going to shake your hand. I will go against the Norton Code and shake your hand if you really declare war on Exxon. Good evening to you all and welcome to Politics 101. As I say on this program, we're not breaking ranks. We're not breaking ranks. We're not breaking ranks. Because in order to cross the line to the promised land, we got to stay together. I don't mean that we are not going to be critical of each other, but we have to do so in a way that don't spill our blood. Family cutlass does cut flesh. Enemy cutlass are cut through down to your vein. Family cutlass, meaning family does quarrel, but the quarrel get limit. So no cussing out. That thing that perform before the PNC Congress, do not repeat it. Attacking to Norton supporters, Amanza supporters, Nigel supporters, Risedale supporters, are you cut the nonsense out? If you're a Hinds and WPA supporter, you will never behave like that. Y'all will never behave like that. You're all going to be examples. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101. We're ready to go. Audreyanna is here and we are going to be talking about a range of issues. Get something on wave. Get something on wave. Super Blue. I was in a little bouncy mood tonight. You know, I could bounce to, you know, and I could get something on wave. Yeah, get on bad. I don't have the energy these days, but every now and again, when the spirit in me, I could. All right. Audreyanna is a church girl. And she's a church girl. But she just gets something on wave now and then, you know. You go wave to God too, you know. I was in church yesterday for a funeral. And when you see them by a play now, you know, and you see everybody dancing and so on. So you dance with Jesus, you know. So don't believe anything wrong, but get something and wave. You wave for the Lord, you wave for Jesus. And those of you all who just wave for earthly things, but it got a limit. It got a limit. All right. Audreyanna, good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Hinds. I was enjoying you. Get something and wave. Get something and wave.
But see, and that line, she's a church girl, but she just gets something and wave.
I was waving in the studio and leaving it to you, Dr. Hinds.
Audreyanna, good evening and welcome back.
Thank you so much. I thank you for the invitation, and it's really a pleasure to be on the program again and, you know, just talk.
Yes. You know, you've been missing, and in the time you've been missing, we have grown Politics 101. So some of the new members may not remember you. Please introduce yourself.
All right. I am Audreyanna Thomas, and I have been, how do I present myself? I have been involved in a whole lot of things. For the past 2 years, Dr. Hinds, when you've missed me, I've been doing some very interesting work. I was the regional project manager, project coordinator for a climate change and health project. This is for the Pan American Health Organization, the World Health Organization. So the project I was managing is actually the largest PAHO project in the region. And I was the project coordinator. And that project is being implemented in 16 countries. And so for the past almost 2 years, I've been busy with that project. It's implemented in 16 countries, and we've worked with a lot of the major regional agencies like the CARICOM Secretariat, the University of the West Indies, CMIH, the 5Cs. And so I've been doing a lot of really good work in climate change and health over the past 2 years.
Thank you very much. And, talking about climate change, I mean, we in Guyana don't get to talk a lot about those issues because our politics take up 99% of our time. And, we don't get to discuss issues like climate change and so forth. But we just had Hurricane Beryl and, the havoc it has visited upon our region. I mean, we in Guyana didn't, for obvious reasons, we weren't in the path. But it is clear that a place like Barbados, which is not usually in the hurricane path, got a little touch up this time around, and it is clear that the sea is warming and so on. So talk to us about why we in Guyana should be interested and we should pay attention to climate change and everything that comes with it.
I think, Dr. Hines, thank you for that, because the science of climate change is established. I don't think that we need to discuss the science anymore. I think the focus should be now on adaptation and mitigation. The project I was working on building resilience. So the project I was working on, it was focused on building resilience in the 16 countries, the 16 focus countries, particularly as it relates to health. So one of the areas, for example, for that project was to support countries to develop health chapters as a part of their national adaptation planning process. So we assisted, I think we had assisted 10 countries out of the 16 to develop health chapters as a part of their national adaptation planning process, so that with the advent of climate change, as it relates to health, these countries will be prepared in a very strategic way. In addition to that, we were building capacity in terms of building the leadership capacity within governmental agencies in the region, and we were also focusing on co-benefits as it relates to air quality, examining and improving air quality in the region, and a number of other areas. So we, in addition to that, we're working also with youth and sort of creating that orientation among young people of their roles and responsibilities in adaptation and mitigation as it relates to climate change. In our context, it was climate change and health. We in Guyana, we're fortunate because we're on the mainland. So very often we're not in the path of let's say, for example, hurricanes. But nevertheless, we still face, for example, flooding. Flooding is another agent of disaster. And with the warming in the oceans, for example, with sea level rise, Guyana is right at the we're right at the Atlantic Ocean, and so we could be exposed. So Guyana has to also build resilience at the level of the institutions, at the level of the community, at the level of policy. And so that was partly the focus of, well, not only of the project, but that climate change has to be integrated, mainstreamed into our development planning. As a matter of fact, into our development planning, sustainable development planning, into our sustainable business planning. We now need not only talk about business, but sustainable business. And how do we integrate climate change considerations, adaptation and mitigation considerations into our sustainable business models, strategies, planning, etc.
Well said, sis. And of course, we are now an oil producing nation. We're a petrol state. They're drilling, tens of thousands of barrels of oil every day, every week, every month. And of course, climate change and become even more important for us. And I'm going to want you to comment on that. Asha Lee is saying here, Dr. Hines, I know it was family drum does beat with feather lad, me never hear the one. Thank you, Asha, but it makes sense. Family drum does beat with feather. I never hear the one. I never hear the one. I learned something here tonight. And this is what I'm talking about, the folk wisdom of our people. Family drum does beat with feather. Family cutlass, not cut deep. Same logic, same wisdom. So thank you, Asha. I learned something here tonight. I wonder where you're from. Was it a Bobishan? That sounds like Bobbies. It got to be a Bobishan, for thing that way. So Audreyanna, as an oil-producing country, am I correct to say that we should be even more cognizant, even more attentive to the logic and the trajectory of climate change?
Absolutely, Dr. Hines. But I think that it would require the will. I think what Guyana lacks is the will. And I think Guyana can evolve. Guyana has an excellent opportunity to evolve as an excellent model, as a country that is an oil and gas producing country, as well as a country that tries to find that balance. I don't know if we could call it a healthy balance, but some kind of balance between mitigating an adaptation as it relates to climate change and producing oil and gas. As a matter of fact, I did my thesis on Guyana. It's on development preparedness, strengthening the rule of law as an essential tool for improving governance and achieving strengthening. Okay, so it was development preparedness, strengthening cross-sectorial governance in foreign direct investment to maximize opportunities for maintaining the rule of law as Guyana transitions into an oil and gas economy and society. So essentially what I looked at is, I knew that it was anticipated in my studies that Guyana becoming an oil and gas society, there will be tensions. There will be tensions as it relates to the rule of law is going to be challenged, and we've seen that. There will be tensions between international investment law and international environment law, international human rights law. So we're seeing all of those tensions and those conflicts. To mitigate the tensions and the conflicts that we're seeing, we need the will, and particularly the will at the level of our policymakers. So when we take, for example, you just mentioned that the government had joined with Exxon to go to court. What we see from my perspective, having studied international investment law, and how do we maintain the rule of law as Guyana evolves into this oil and gas society, that was a beginning of the tensions that we're seeing and the conflicts in the society, and a government that perhaps don't know how to deal with these new dynamics. So but Guyana needs to answer your question. Guyana can be an excellent model, but we need to make some serious adjustments as it relates to the way, I would even be frank to say, government approach the whole oil and gas industry in Guyana. there needs to be a reorientation, a rethinking. And I'll make this point. Sun Tzu's in his book, The Art of War, he said that the strength of the weak against the strong is his integrity. Exxon is strong. And our strength as a country against a strong Exxon, the strength of our government, of any government of Guyana, against a strong Exxon, a strong foreign investment company like Exxon, would be our integrity. And I think that is a good place to start if we're going to start talking about how do we step back and remodel our approach to the oil and gas industry.
How do we step back and rethink and how we're going to deal with the oil and gas industry? Sister Audreyanna Thomas is here, and we are talking. We start off by talking about climate change and oil and gas industry. We pivot into that. I would like to say good evening, good night to all of you. If you're joining us from in Guyana, it's a pleasant Tuesday night where I am. The rain continues. Rain, May, June rain in July. If he wanted anything, I mean, we still getting the rain. Quite a hectic day for me. I did announce here last night that I got a gift of 3 computers, and today I went to deliver one of them to the young student who's preparing for CXC next year. She was all smiles. I should have gotten the picture to share here, but I'm going to share before the end of the week. And then the organization, one of the organizations that I work with, presented one to them. And as I said here last night, we take things for granted. We're not in government. We're not able to do big policies and so on for our people. But so many of our people are in need. And, if there are things that you have, use people like me to get them to our people. Use people like me. And as we move around, people tell us of their needs. And I shall be using this platform as I get requests for help. I shall be calling on you. We've got to help lift our people, and we've got to put up some barriers against those who would like to come into our home and entice our people with trinkets. So it's better for you all provide a laptop for a child in need than that child mother running and prostrating herself to the PPP for a laptop. And you, our people, I'm sure so many of us can put our hands on laptops that we're not using, or we get new ones and so on and so forth. It's a way of putting up the barriers and not risking our people having to go and prostrate themselves before these people. Thank you all very much, all those who continue to help. Thank you all very much. Audreyanna, before you took the time off to do some professional work, you made it very clear that you were going to contest the upcoming elections. Is that still the case?
Yes, Dr. Hines, I'm still running for president, and I must say that I see Nigel has entered into the race, and I think that is admirable. It's also it's a great thing, and I also see that the PNC, they've had their Congress, and they are saying that the presidential candidate must come from the PNC. So I'm watching very closely at how that is emerging in the society. But what I would like to say is that I have some views which I'd like to share. For example, I've noticed that the AFC had said that they are keen on a consensus presidential candidate. And then I saw the PNC rebutted by saying that the presidential candidate must come from the PNC. And I'll put my institutional cap on. From an institutional perspective, I think that the PNC, I agree with the PNC's position that the presidential candidate should come from the PNC if they're going to form a coalition, and the PNC is the larger organization in that coalition. As a matter of fact, I was surprised the AFC started out by indicating that they wanted to have they're focusing on a consensus presidential candidate. But I'll tell you what, I think the PNC has to look at the AFC now as two entities. There is the AFC and there is Nigel Hughes. Nigel Hughes is an entity by himself. So I think in terms of the PNC giving consideration to forming a coalition, I think they have to form a coalition to go into this elections. We're going to get to that. But in giving considerations to a coalition, the PNC has to look at the AFC and Nigel Hughes as two entities. And I'll tell you what, I actually studied partnership building, the science and art of partnering. And so let me put my partnership building cap on here. There are two elements to building a partnership. There is the individual goal and the collective goal. Nigel is an entity. I see Nigel as negotiating. I see the AFC, they're negotiating here. Nigel has the individual goals. People say, oh, you know, we have a partnership, we have a team, and so the individual goal is not important. As a professional partnership practitioner, I say, no, that's why your coalition and your alliance will fall apart. Because if you only think that the collective aims are important and not individual aims, then if the individuals are not satisfied, then they will leave. And so I think we need to be more scientific about when we talk about forming this coalition, at the political coalition, any partnership. So the PNC has to listen to what the AFC is saying, listen to what Nigel is saying. And let me tell you what I am hearing. I'm hearing Nigel saying that, look, I'm willing to get into this race, but I come as a whole entity. There's a whole lot that I am involved in. I need some assurances. And so I've been listening, paying very keen attention. I heard him the other night on, I think it was Mark Benchcup's program. And he said that one of the programs, I can't remember which one it was. And he said that he was looking at whether it's the presidency, it's the prime ministerial position, or second vice president. I think the PNC, if I had to advise the PNC, I would say discuss among yourselves and agree on what are you going to offer? The offer to the AFC now that Nigel is in the mix. Settle that. Fair enough. I would say that the PNC should not give any other member of any other organization the presidential candidate, because there are some institutional obligations which are tied to that position. But there is the prime ministerial candidate. There is the second vice presidential candidate. Settle that issue with the AFC. Once Nigel has that information, then all this discussion debate that we're having as to whether it's a conflict of interest. And by the way, I don't think it's a conflict of interest. You're right. There's no conflict of interest with Exxon. And we can discuss, if we have time, I can come to international investment law in a minute, and we'll talk about the difficulties of renegotiating the contracts, but we can also talk about some alternatives. So let's come back to, so there is no conflict of interest at the moment as it relates to Nigel. So the PNC can settle that issue. So Nigel now can be better informed as to if you're going to make a decision to put your whole self in. You know, we say you put your right foot in, you put your left foot in. I figure that he's putting his right foot in, his left foot in. But for him to put his whole self in, he needs some assurances. Give him what assurance? Say the presidential candidate, first vice president. Settle that issue and let him make some decisions. The other aspect, I would say, the presidential candidate should come, and this is, like I said, I have my partnership building cap on, my organizational cap on. The presidential candidate should come from the PNC, because they, while do you remember when President Irfanali had met with the Dominican Republic president, I think, or a team from the Dominican Republic, and then they decided that they would do the oil refinery. When he came back, the vice president, the party sort of retracted on that. And I think the vice president said something about the party decision. That institution, Dr. Hines, even as president, is fundamental. So from an institutional, in addition to that, as a member of the PNCR, that presidential candidate will have obligations to the country as well as obligations to the organization, the institutions. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because Nigel is a friend of mine for more than 2 decades. Nigel has been my lawyer. But then, like I said, I'm putting on my professional partnership building cap, my professional organizational development, institutional development cap. And so if we go into decided, oh, we like Nigel fine, the PNC under public pressure or whatever pressure decides, they will put Nigel as the presidential candidate, right? I'm speaking and sharing this with you because we're going to have issues. They're going to have, because he's not from the organization, there's some intricacies within the organization that he will not understand, and they may very well end up not having an effective coalition. So deal with those issues up front. So I said all of that because I was saying, yes, I am running for president because I believe that we need women in that mix. I look at Aubrey, I look at Nigel, and even yourself. I look at like you were saying last night, Manzon, there is Roysdale. But I also believe that I have high technical skills, and now I'm promoting myself as a potential candidate. I have high technical skills, which I hear Nigel talk about human development. I read the human development textbook from beginning to end. I read the World Bank report and the human development report from the beginning to end sometimes. I'm the human development specialist. I'm a sustainable development specialist, if I put it that way, and sustainable business and governance. What I bring is, as a leader, you need conceptual skills, technical skills, and you also need mobilization skills. Nigel has excellent you need people skills, conceptual skills, technical skills, and the people skills is a part of the mobilization skills. Nigel has excellent people skills, mobilization skills, technical skills in certain areas. Aubrey has excellent people skills, technical skills as it relates to politics. I don't think I understand, or many of us understand politics the way Aubrey understands it. But when it comes to governance, it's not just winning. I am sure that they can win, but after you win what? Where Audreyanna comes in is after you win what? After you win, how do you govern? That's my, what do I bring to the table? I bring to the table technical skills in sustainable development, sustainable business, in governance, and at a highly technical level. The last project I told you I managed was in 16, the project was implemented in 16 countries. Locally, I was at Gaisuco, for example. When I was at Gaisuco, the chief executive said to me, he said, Audreyanna, we will normally get very good people who are agriculturalists, human resources people, finance people, accountants, chemists, etc. But we do not normally get somebody who is very good in your field. This is the social sciences, if you can call it that, because they would normally go to an international organization. we prevented Gaisuco and even Guyana from perhaps going into a civil war, because here it is, Gaisuco was laying off more than 4,000 people, most of whom were seen as the PPP constituency. So how did Guyana not necessarily descended as a result of that act that the APNU and the AFC did in terms of closing 4 estates? I remember one of the chief executives saying to me, Audreyanna, go outside and find out why this place is so quiet. We couldn't have done what we did, and this place is so quiet. And I remember saying to him that you underestimate the impact of the shock counteraction and shock absorption program that we developed. That was the Sustainable and Resilient Communities program. So I'm saying I come with a track record. Yes, I say yes to Nigel, yes to Aubrey, yes to David Hines, yes to the others, but I'm also saying yes to Audreyanna. I can make a contribution.
She can make a contribution. Audreyanna Thomas here tonight, bringing us to a consciousness that we are short on women on the front lines. Well, not women on the front lines. Women are always, they're more on the front lines than men, as far as I'm concerned. But when we begin to talk about leadership, our society has still not gotten to that point where, in a reflexive way, we turn to women. You know, we eventually get there, but our reflexes immediately go to men. And I'm very glad that Audreyanna is here as a woman. They always say, you know, man get ambition, you know, and I'm talking about ambition here in the positive sense. It's good when people can say, look, I think I have something to offer, and I'm putting myself forward. Asha, yes, you're a Bostonian. I know everything. You talk Asha Lee. Malcolm Paris' grandmother is Miss Lee. As a small boy, I grew up on Miss Lee, Marby at the line side, they were Barn and Grove. And Slick used to drive car. Slick was a front side man. So yes, you're right. You drink company water. So feather, family feather, family drum. A feather does beat family drum. So look, that come from my village boxing, and I didn't know it. Right. Thank you, Asha, for bringing me up to speed. Audreyanna, you touched on the issue of conflict of interest in Nigeria. I want you to elaborate on that point that you said, that Nigeria does not have a conflict of interest. Elaborate on it, please.
Okay, but there are 2 points here. One, Ghana has 750,000 people. It's not like India with 1.6 billion people. So there's a wide range in India in terms of a wide range of a pool of whether it be legal forms or professionals that you can tap into who are not related. In Guyana, everybody is related to somebody. And I'm speaking that in the loose context, of course. So we are, so that's one thing. The other aspect, so you will always find somebody who perhaps knows somebody or is related to somebody, whether it be by marriage or through the blood or otherwise. But I have, coming back to I've studied international investment law, and I'll also deal with why it's difficult to renegotiate the contract, the ExxonMobil contract. And Nigel is not currently, like you said, I agree with you that currently there isn't a conflict of interest because he's not directly in a decision-making role. For example, he is not, for example, in Parliament where he has to, or in government rather, not Parliament. I would say government because somebody would say, but his wife is a parliamentarian. But I would say he's not in government, for example, holding the position of the vice president, where the vice president is directly involved in making decisions as it relates to foreign direct investment, etc. Nigel has been elected as the leader of the Alliance for Change, yes, he's going to be having some inputs, but we have to differentiate the input from that direct involvement in terms of his direct involvement in the decision making. That is one. Two, this is the reason why I am saying that Nigel has to make some decisions, but he didn't just drop out the sky. Nigel has a lot that he's involved in. So so the PNC needs to very quickly decide if they're going to go to the elections um, with as a coalition. If you're going to go to the elections as a coalition and you see the AFC as being a part of that coalition, what roles are you going to be giving to the AFC, the WPA, and whoever else? I would say in this context, the AFC, because there's a situation which has to be dealt with. Like I said, Nigel is an entity by himself. So the sooner he can have that information, then or have some indications, I would say some indications as to what are the possibilities, he would be better informed. And I'm taking, like I said, as a partnership building practitioner, I'm taking a very pragmatic approach here. And he needs information so that he can make a well-informed decision as to what his next steps will be. And I'll be frank, is it worth it? And if it is worth it. So the sooner that discussion can take place at the level of the internal PNC and at the level of the PNC and the AFC, I think Nigel will be in a better position to make certain decisions when that time comes. But I don't think that we are there yet. If you like, I don't know if you'd like to ask a follow-up question on this, or if not, I can move on to the difficulty in terms of renegotiating the Exxon's contract.
Yes, go right ahead to the renegotiation.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So again, I studied again international investment law, the tensions between international investment law, international investment norms, and the tensions with international environmental law, for example, international human rights law. And there's a criticism of international investment law that it has evolved to protect the investors. And investors have suffered in the past. And here I'm not carrying any brief for Exxon. I am just, I have no reason to do that. I'm just stating based on my studies. And so it's, and so the criticism is that international investment law favors the investor. And that's because investors have, for example, an oil and gas company. It has to invest significantly in a country. The assets are enormous. And so investors have had experiences where countries have, for example, nationalized their companies and seized their, etc. Right? Here I'm saying it's one thing in trying to solve a problem. We know what we want. We want the contract to be renegotiated, but we also have to get into Exxon's head. We have to also get into Exxon's camp. What does Exxon want? And so the international investment law has evolved to protect the investor. As a matter of fact, there is some thinking that international human rights law, for example, and international environment law sometimes are seen as subordinate to international investment law. So Exxon, so what international investment law, what it says is that this contract is not only between Guyana and Exxon. This is a part of international investment law, international investment norms. So Exxon has to agree that this contract is, for this contract to be renegotiated. I think in Guyana, and I think instead of lining up perhaps by Exxon's door or gate and protesting for them to renegotiate the contract, we should line up by the office of the president for them to create an environment so that it puts Guyana in a stronger position to renegotiate. For example, business is about risk and returns. Since Exxon has signed that contract, whether it be 2015 or whenever, the risk of doing business in Guyana has increased. We've had the Venezuela controversy has increased significantly. We have the political instability in the country has increased. The ethnic tensions has increased. The business environment has deteriorated significantly to the point the U.S. has now sanctioned certain individuals, including a senior government official. So we're going to Exxon and say, renegotiate the contract because you're getting more money. If I'm to advise the government and the people of Guyana, I would say, or if I run for president, what I would ask the people of Guyana to, here is what we'll do. Let us improve the investment and the business climate in the country. 4 areas we'll focus on. 1, political stability. Find a way for government and opposition to work together. This government has absolutely no reason for nurturing the kind of political, the adversarial political climate that we have. Why aren't they appointing opposition members to boards? I see no reason for them not to do that, right? So 1, let us take measures to ensure more political stability in the country. That's 1. The second area is let us address the ethnic tensions in the society. I think this government is very provocative, and they have provoked and stoked the ethnic tensions as against mitigating and managing it. And that has to change. The third area I would say let us work on as a Guyanese people would be to government and Guyanese people to create a business environment that is conducive for doing business. Not an environment where a foreign government has to sanction operatives, business operatives and government operatives in the environment. And the fourth thing, this one is a little more difficult. The Venezuela controversy is going to be a threat for a long time, but I still think, so I would put that one on hold while we deal with that in a different way, because that also has security implications. So, but as a people, we can focus on those 3 areas. And I would say to Exxon, we're going to come back to you in 2 years. And we're coming back to you with a strengthened negotiating position where we will say, okay, after 2 years, we focus on reducing the tensions in the political environment in the country. We have more political stability. We have a more cohesive society, less tensions as it relates to ethnic issues. We are not on the verge of civil war. Every day you're wondering if somebody is going to, what is going to be the trigger. And the third aspect would be to clean up our finance and business sector. Go back to Exxon and say, Exxon, we now have come from a position of strength. And Exxon, you see, the other thing is, here I'm getting into Exxon's head and what is happening, what is being discussed in Exxon's camp. Exxon is also thinking about setting a precedent. Should Exxon renegotiate that contract with Guyana because people are protesting and because people say, oh, you're getting more money? Every other country where Exxon has a contract, those countries can come and say, they're now setting a precedent. Those countries can also come and say, now that you're getting more money, renegotiate the contract. What Exxon can do after we would have done those things would be to say to those countries, we're now giving them a model approach that they can use. Guyana, yes, we have renegotiated Guyana's contract, but these are the things which Guyana did. Guyana addressed they have more political stability, they have a stable investment and business environment, and there is and they have a cohesive society. So we had those were substantial reasons. They're in a stronger negotiating position, because when Exxon negotiated that contract with 2%, part of it has to do with risk. So we as a people have to work with our government to reduce the risk. But when we have, for example, I read in the press, you have a police officer purchasing a building in the city for $50 million, assuming allegedly rather, in cash. You have a government officer renegotiating $214 million with, whether it be with the company or otherwise. You have a government who challenges a high court decision on the part of the, or in co with the oil and gas company. That is not putting us in a position of strength as it relates to renegotiating the contract. And so there's one, we're not reducing the risk, and two, we're not putting Guyana in a position of strength. Coming back to, remember I said, Sun Tzu said in his book, The Art of War, the strength of the weak against the strong is his integrity. We're not building integrity. One thing I'd like to say as I'm on this, that $214 million, for example, that was renegotiated with, and that suddenly became $3 million US. To build a new Demerara Bridge cost $260 million US. It means that if the government was prudent, the government would not have had to borrow that $260 million US to build the Demerara Bridge. They could have used that $214 million and borrow $46 million. So the people of Guyana would have been able to benefit from would have saved $214 million. So I think that I'm not saying don't let us protest and don't let us continue the narrative about renegotiating the contract. But I'm also saying that perhaps we also need to even more be at the gates of the office of the president on those things which I have mentioned. Last point before I pause here. Negotiating and what these contracts, it is extremely difficult to renegotiate this contract. The government knows it. I read an article in the Kaicher News just today, I think it was, and I never thought that I would have been able to say at this point that I agree with the vice president but I must say that I agree with the vice president that it's difficult to renegotiate the contract. Mind you, I disagree with him on 1,000,001 other things. But so I'd just like to say that perhaps for me as president, I will say to the Guyanese people, let us focus on those areas that I've mentioned there and go back to Exxon in 2 years with a strengthened negotiating position, and then again continue this discussion on renegotiating the contract.
Sister Audreyanna Thomas here tonight, laying down some challenges to us as a people, as institutions, to try to strengthen our position so that we can, when we go to negotiate the contract with Exxon, we will be doing so from a position of strength, from a position of unity, Sister Audreyanna, it's that time that we have to pivot, and because some of our people have to go over to Sherrod. So any closing thoughts you want to leave us with?
I also wanted to quickly talk about some of what was happening in the PNC. And what
we can leave that. I'll have you back shortly. I will have you back.
What I would like to make is something that you would normally see. You would normally say that and I'm saying this because I see so many of the PNC supporters suffering. And I think that the PNC has to start thinking about how do they remodel the organization to serve two purposes. One, as a political electoral organization, but also as an organization that focuses on the people who they represent. The PNC is the largest organization in Guyana that represents Black people. Likewise, the PPP is the largest organization in Guyana that represents Indo-Guyanese. And so I think the PNC, the PPP understands they're an electoral party, but also they're a party that represents a people. The PNC needs to remodel their organization to also represent, be an electoral organization as well as an organization that represents its people. And the last point that I will make on that is that very often we talk about if the PNC does that, then they may lose Indo-Guyanese votes. I think we're underestimating the humanity of our Indian brothers and sisters. And remember, I come from a development standpoint. So in development, you don't look at what people look like, you deal with the humanity of people. So while we focus, I think we've been focusing or seeing it too much through the lens of politics, and not through the lens of humanity. And I think PNC in its rethinking, in its reorganizing, reorientation, needs to also focus on the humanity of the people who they represent. They are undoubtedly the largest Black representative organization in the country. What do they sell? They don't sell sugar. They don't sell sugar. They don't sell hardware. The political organizations sell leadership. And therefore, they need to understand that and bring that leadership. The PPP brings leadership to its constituencies as well as to the major part of their constituency, the political constituency. They bring leadership to our people, and that's to Indo-Guyanese people. The PNC has to also reorient the organization to bring leadership to the leadership to its electoral constituency as well as to the people who they represent. And I'm saying if you focus on humanity, you do not exclude the other races. You include the other races, but you also ensure it's a way of ensuring that there is more equity in the society. I rest my case, Dr. Hinds.
Thank you very much. Free advice day for the PNC, free advice day for the PNC in tackling the thorny issue of being a multiracial national party that gets most of its support from one race. How do you deal with that dilemma? It's an age-old problem, and Sister Audreyanna is offering some free advice here. Sister Audreyanna, always a pleasure having you on, and you certainly will come back sooner rather than later.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hinds. I look forward to being back, and thank you for inviting me. Thank you to your viewers, and all the best. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much, and thank you, our viewers. Something different tonight, a new voice, a new face, new reasoning, and it's all in the mix. As I said, on our side, we have blessings, richness. We have lots of talents and ideas on our side. If we put all of it together, we will be unbeatable. We will be unbeatable. Thank you all very much for staying another night with us. And we certainly will be back tomorrow night, rocking as we do. Rocking. Get something and wave until tomorrow night. Same time, same place.